Sonic the Comic, issue 279. We start out with a text box saying that after weeks of attempting to trace his movements, Sonic's tracked down Vermin the Cyberneck. Sonic shows humility, like it's surprisingly typical of Fleetway Sonic, by not being sure he could beat Vermin in a fight, which makes sense since he has invincible short fuse armor. He reveals that since being drained of excess Chaos energy, he's never slept so well or felt so calm in years. Really? Good thing he clarified excess Chaos energy. I guess it makes sense because he's not worried about having an evil super form anymore, so he'd sleep well. Anyways, what I was going to say was, it'd be stupid of him not to come into this prepared. Wouldn't he ask all of his friends how they beat Vermin last time and make sure to replicate their success? Could they have him equipped with a computer virus version of that alien program that got Shorty out of his suit that was transferred to Vermin? The only success I can imagine being possible to replicate is that Amy made sure that something fell on his armor from a gum tree that's corrosive to metal. Wouldn't he come equipped with stuff like that in weaponized form? It'd be insanely stupid of him to just come here planning on spin dashing at him. Or even stupider. I couldn't imagine him doing anything stupider than that. Okay, already we're off to a bad start if this is the case, because come on, Fleetway Sonic is supposed to be the smartest one. Then Shadow warps over to him, and Sonic calls it a nasty surprise. And Shadow makes an ironic callback to Shadow the Hedgehog, saying, "Nice to see you too, Sonic." I love that. It's a deadpan snarker line, so you would expect to hear it from Shadow more than Sonic. It does make sense that Fleetway Sonic would be irrationally paranoid of Shadow, even if he's actually Shadow 2 from cyberspace, not actually the one that destroyed the Special Zone, because he still looks like him, and apparently he's got Chaos Control like him. And I know exactly how overpowered Chaos Control is by this point. Okay, so if this story was written brilliantly, he just warped Vermin out of his armor effortlessly. At the very least, he would freeze him in time all he wants. I was hoping Shadow 2 didn't have Chaos Control because there was no indication he did outside of cyberspace, and that's an insanely overpowered Storybreaker power. He's just a program based on Shadow, not the real thing. So I don't know where his powers actually come from. Shadow explains to him who he really is after Sonic so casually asks if he's come back to give destroying Mobius another go. You'd think he'd look more intimidated and tense than that. Sonic snarks that he's supposed to believe Shadow is reformed. Sonic, do you not listen to anything he said? It's not even the same person as him. He could have phrased that better. I expect him to say, "You still look like Shadow." Shadow says he wants to be the hedgehog Kintobor would want him to be. I like that Sonic starts to calm down and sympathize with him because he got reminded how loyal he is to Kintobor. Shadow says he doesn't really need to impress him. Sonic doesn't get mad at him, and it's immediately dropped. I like that. It's subtle. Still, influence gotten me to think of Shadow as the harbinger of terrible action scene writing. This makes me glad that the stories in Sonic the Comic are just a couple of pages each and usually wrap their story up in just those. Because it means there might actually be hope that the fight will end as quick as it should. Sonic sarcastically asks Vermin how he could hold an illegal weapons deal without inviting him and Shadow as they land on the floor from jumping off the roof. Perfectly fine afterwards because I guess they had rings. Though it's reckless of them to waste rings doing that instead of just being warped here by Chaos Control. I'm sure this isn't a bad sign though. Sonic characters don't get hurt as much as they should all the time. The guy on the right says to get them, proving that Vermin really is up to no good. So good, I'm not somehow expected to believe he's a great person now. The description of the story didn't it say enemies becoming friends, not just one enemy? So that's why I assumed there would be more than just Shadow. Sonic's dumb enough to waste time punching the armor, and lampshades that he kept in top condition after all this time, and has to be reminded it's made of the strongest metal ever, so big surprise there. Seriously, I'm completely dumbfounded. Why did he even bother punching it? I guess they didn't go over any kind of plan first before jumping in. Making smart characters this stupid is the kind of style of writing I've grown horribly sick of with the reboot. You know how many idiot balls Sonic was given in the Archie Sonic reboot? 41! More than any other character. Even Knuckles only has 22, and Shadow's got 18. I'd expect Sonic to not even try to attack him, and just tell Shadow to use that teleportation power he just showed to warp Vermin's armor away. That's what I thought they'd do. Obviously, he can't warp Vermin out of it if he doesn't know what he looks like under it. But he could still chaos control the armor away. Shadow avoids an anti-gravity gun, and the guy says the targeting calibration is off. I like the idea of civilians having something like that that's both sci-fi and doesn't hurt you by itself, so it's less dark. That's awesome, and more creative than a ray gun that shoots lasers. So at least this adds to the world building well by showing what kind of guns civilians usually use. So Shadow acts like a complete idiot. He wastes time bragging that he's the ultimate life form, but completely fails to learn the lesson Sonic did, and wastes time punching at Vermin's armor instead. Well, he wasn't looking at Sonic when he hit Vermin, but come on! Just teleport him out of the goddamn armor! You know what? I don't want Shadow fighting enemies that matter anymore. This comic's trying to be triumphant with having Shadow finally meet Sonic and agree to start helping him with bigger threats, and having Sonic realize that he can trust him. But it was better off earlier when it just stuck to him fighting little mooks that died in one hit, like the Egg cyberspace programs. Anything worse than that and he has to lose 1 trillion brain cells when fighting it. If this was Rick, he'd create a portal close enough to Vermin that it'd get his armor off. Finitibus was just as smart with his portals. And that kind of stuff happens on a whim, at the spur of the moment. It's not that hard for someone to think to use teleportation as a weapon. Vermin shoots a laser that creates an explosion sending these idiots flying upwards. I guess they had ring slip, and that's why they didn't die. This is the kind of unacceptably abysmal performance in battle that made me lose all respect for Shadow and Archie. But SCC has always been more consistently good and way less frustrating than it. It handled Shadow better until this point. And these stories are short. They're allowed to have the fight end quickly. Just have a bunch of padding if you really want the ending to be at the end. Shadow says they could still beat Vermin with a combined attack. After Sonic says, "Duh, I'm an idiot." I mean, he says that neither of them could take down Vermin individually. And Shadow's more than just a pretty face, which is basically the same thing. This kind of writing has no self-awareness at all. You'd have to be an idiot to think Shadow couldn't take Vermin down individually. Why isn't he just warping the front half of Vermin's armor away? He doesn't necessarily have to be able to imagine what the interior of that armor looks like to do that if Chaos controls a bunch of light. Meaning that he could imagine the light covering up the part of the armor he can't visualize. And you'd think the magic of the ultimate life form would be able to get what he wants to do. But no, instead they think a combined attack would work. Like it's IDW Sonic. I heard combined attacks were in that, and I hope they're way better justified than here. Why aren't these idiots being attacked while they're doing all this talking? Is he gonna throw a Chaos Spear at any point? It'd be pretty boring if he just punched them and that's it. At least have some more variety. Shadow says that they'll have to catch the two of them first, and Sonic asks Vermin if he can fight them both at once. All he's doing with this is giving him more time that he should be spending interrupting him with an attack, and warning him a second time of what he's going to do. This fight scene is awful. Shadow really shouldn't have been written to teleport to Sonic. I could have gone on believing he didn't have chaos control outside of cyberspace, because that would have made sense. I don't know why this Shadow has his powers at all, and I figured he could only use chaos control in cyberspace itself, and wasn't programmed to be able to do it in the real world, because there'd be no programming to alter because it's not cyberspace. You shouldn't even have to be typing and thinking about the story to realize how stupid Shadow's being, because the multiplayer of SA2 proved to everyone that he can freeze people in time. And he does that outside the multiplayer too, like in Archie. Anyone with an ounce of creativity could realize how capable Chaos Control is in a fight. At the very least, he could warp someone really high up in the air and let them fall back down, damaging them with fall damage, which he did to Amy and Sonic Boom just fine. Shadow merely kicks Vermin, while Sonic holds his head to keep him still. Both of them are just completely failing to learn from their last failure, that melee attacks clearly don't work. They're attacking like it's their first time ever getting into a fight. When Shadow said a combined attack, I assumed, naturally, that they both attack Vermin at once. Instead, Sonic's just harmlessly holding his armor ear. And then we see Shadow kick Vermin while Sonic does nothing to him at all. These two are being so stupid that they don't even know what the words combined attack mean. We've fallen a long way from Sonic the Comic Original, where Sonic kept being too smart to make sense. I take that over this because that was meant to make him cool, like he's supposed to be. Not a complete idiot. I hope Shadow never fights anything but badniks again after this crap. You'd have to be dense to not notice how stupid Shadow is being here. Even if they actually hit him at Sonic speed, which would send him flying, well, logically he'd still die from the sudden stop afterwards, even if the armor itself is undamaged. So they can't be attacking him at Sonic speed. Their attacks are weak because they're holding back. If Shadow's holding back, then why did he talk to him as if him being the ultimate life form was going to give him any kind of advantage over Sonic here? So far I'm not seeing a difference. They'd be prosecuted for murder if they just sent him flying with a spin dash and killed him, and Sonic's been through enough recently, so they have to hold back. It's interesting that an anti-gravity gun needs to recharge. Does that even make sense? It's a magical gun. And Sonic says that he can't be vulgar with his insult, breaking the fourth wall the young hedgehogs are watching when there aren't any hedgehogs watching in universe. SEC hasn't broken the fourth wall in forever, and more importantly, how many kids actually know about SEC Online? It's on the internet, and it's based on a comic that was officially cancelled in like 1999. Shadow says he's just gonna keep knocking Vermin down, and Sonic stands there and does nothing while he thinks about attacking Vermin from behind while Shadow's distracting him. And because he didn't interrupt him in the last panel, Vermin easily puts his tail around Sonic's neck because Sonic isn't even smart enough to do another basic melee attack to a target that's completely vulnerable. Did that drain of excess energy lead to a drain in brain? Vermin's only being intimidating because the people fighting him are forced to be morons. And that is the lamest source of cheap, amateurish drama ever. And all the time Vermin is talking while the panel's trying to make him look threatening, I'm wondering why Shadow doesn't use his teleportation power to save Sonic and beat him instantly. Vermin wants to find some way to turn Tintobor back into Robotnik and rule Mobius with them. This is intimidating, but Shadow's not supposed to be this stupid. Shadow reveals he's just been standing there watching, not even trying to kick at Vermin, hope that the sudden force moving him will surprise him into letting Sonic go. He thinks, duh, it's not like I can just pull off a tail-made Megatol. You can by warping it away. If you can warp yourself and Rouge to get her out of that vault, you can warp a tail. Then he notices the jack on the end of Vermin's tail. Okay, I don't care that the writer wanted beaten in a way that seems creative. Everything fell apart the minute Shadow was written into the fight. Even then, it's not that creative because I've seen a virus be uploaded to that jack before. He remembers reports from Robotnik's online files that Vermin was defeated when his armor broke off him. He realizes that if he can just force him out of the suit, he'll be an easy target. What took him so long to realize this? That was obvious from the start. Right when Megatol was first mentioned. Wait, an antivirus Chaos Blast? He can still do that outside of cyberspace? What is this bullshit? Why didn't he just use Chaos Control if he was gonna break him out of the armor in one spell? At this point, with how badly they were doing, I was expecting Vermin to just get away. Then the person in Vermin's armor, out of complete nowhere, is able to wall jump away just fine to retreat when I thought he was completely screwed right there. So it doesn't even have the victory be as happy as I'd expect it to be, with him getting arrested like most minor villains are. Then out of complete nowhere, I'm expected to believe Shadow's disappearing because he's expanded too much chaos energy and can't maintain this form any longer, even though he was given a real organic body by getting Sonic's DNA. A real body wouldn't have this stupid limitation anymore. He wasn't made by Dr. Zachary, so it's not like he was made in the exact same way. I thought he wasn't just a being of chaos energy anymore. Granted, the original Shadow got Sonic's DNA to start walking around and he got the same fate, but that was just as stupid now that I'm thinking about it. If he has fur, that means he's organic, not a being of chaos energy. I would imagine a being of magical energy to look like an electricity being. That's energy. Why would he need his DNA then if he can walk around as a being of pure chaos energy that vanishes if he uses even one measly magical spell? This is the worst wimpification of Shadow I've ever seen. He says that he can live on if he becomes pure energy. There's no non-pure energy. Sonic says Kintobor would be proud of him, and he reminds me of the bullshit that clones turn into energy when they die, which was embarrassing weird bullshit when Sonic's own clone died. So no one in their right mind would bring that back. This censorship came out of complete nowhere because I was thinking with logic. Shadow just said that he can live on, and yet Sonic thinks he died. Well, he kinda deserved this if he was fighting this stupidly. But this kind of bullshit ending just tries to retroactively erase everything heartwarming about the fact that Shadow 2 got an organic body for himself. He was so happy and he said he's gonna get old and wrinkly someday. That's not supposed to be ironic. And then he vanishes at the end of one story? If that was supposed to be how it worked, why wasn't he warned about that? He'd actually have been better off staying in cyberspace at that point. At least that was unique. This was a horrible story. And there's been good stories in STC Online before, so it's not the inevitable result of a fan writing a story. There's no excuse. They had months to fine-tune the story. As far as I'm concerned, the story never happened. Hopefully the next one won't be a completely worthless waste of time. I spent like an hour on that shit. And I'm guessing I won't be the only one who hates this ending, because Shadow's a really popular character in the series, so they can't actually not bring him back, or the fan backlash to this would be insane. The next story picks up from where the Chaotix left off, where they're being arrested for fighting bad guys. And granted, vigilantism and assault is illegal, but nobody wants to see that happen to heroic main characters. That's the one kind of realism that doesn't belong in anything. It just sucked all the fun out of a series where the whole appeal is seeing the superhero fight the bad guys. I'm looking at you, superhero comics. Espio talks to Mighty and Vector from the other end of the jail cell, because apparently he wasn't arrested with them when he was clearly with them last time. I guess they were mistaken for an evil Mighty and evil Vector, or Espio wasn't fighting when the cops arrived. Then we cut to later, where Mighty hopes they're not too upset about that wall. So why didn't we get to see Mighty break the wall with his super strength? That'd have been cool. I can admire fast pacing in a story after Archie, but skipping past an entire prison break? It was amusing that Vector just says, "Relax, I left them an IOU." It turns out they're in front of a bad guy hideout that Espio told them about. Mighty spin dashes to get into the building, and right after they were being intimidating, there's a flash of light behind them, and a loud stupid noise, and they scream. Then we see Crimson Cobra holding a fire gun with Espio having burns. I guess his rings are healing him as we speak, so that's why there's no consequences after this, right? Crimson says this device draws in chaos energy and unleashes it as a stream of destruction. Well, I'm impressed that I got to learn how ray guns like that are powered, though I don't know how it would draw in energy. The Chaotix sure are lucky that he's so caught up in bragging about his device thinking he looks cool to actually fire at them in all this time, or they'd be dead. He says that it has limitless power fueled by the special zone itself, letting him cause havoc with the press of a button. And then, I guess it stops working because it was flashing like it was about to be used earlier. Why would he suddenly decide not to fire it? Did it malfunction? Then out of nowhere, they get threatened by Charmy, who's being mistaken for a ghost. I have to assume he was warped ahead in time, and that's why he didn't starve to death or dehydrate and didn't have to go to the bathroom and all the time Vector took to successfully go after him. Because he was made to disappear a couple issues ago. I assumed he was cured of whatever happens to him, and warping here was just the end of it. It didn't make any sense anyways, so why would I expect it to have its own logic and keep going? So did Vector bring a cure to this? It'd be dumb to go after Charmy without one prepared. Lucky for them, he goes back to normal on his own. Charmy falls on Cobra, and then he says that he thought he saw his friends come here.
I like that he reminds us that he was wearing a helmet. He wears the thing so often that you don't get used to thinking of it as a helmet instead of just a part of his head. But obviously it's a helmet, so that protected him, and knocked Cobra out, because he fell on him with the helmet on after catching him by surprise and intimidating him. See, that's how you write a fight scene correctly. That's how you end it quickly. You can do that just fine. We cut ahead to later at the police district, where the cop says they'll be collecting on that IOU. Wait, that's it? Well, I guess it makes sense that he wouldn't try to arrest Mighty again because he can break out of any prison. But Vector? Is that why they stopped being chased by the police so easily last time? This panel makes me interested in learning how Vector's gonna get the money to pay off the IOU. I guess I'll never get a plot like that, because that would be good. Vector says that it's a special zone, alright. Oh, this better be good. So why did they get arrested then? He says the special zone was filled with chaos energy, but energy can't be created or destroyed, only changed. And Zachary thought a chain reaction would destroy the zone, but it only changed its form. Then why was it all whiting out and changing colors last time? Why was it detected as just an empty void? Twice. Omni said it was an empty void. And what, did Sonic make a false assumption? Because nobody bothered to check? This sounds like the Genesis wave, but a bit more plausible because we don't have the insanely overpoweredness that someone could change reality with a machine to their every whim on purpose. Mighty says that this sounds like one of Charmy's bad comic books. If you know it's bad, why did you write it anyways? I guess the writer thought the idea was good, even if it shows up in bad comics. I was assuming this was just a parallel universe version of the Special Zone. Parallel universes exist in comics all the time. Keep it simple. Vector says that as for Charmy, his theory is anti-Chaotix's dimensional destabilizer left Charmy stranded between two dimensions. So that's why he was being weird? He was just phasing in and out between two worlds? At least there's finally an explanation that fills in a huge hole. He says that when the Crimson Cobra began drawing in chaos energy, it must have reacted with Charmy. And that's what sucked him all the way to the Special Zone, because Charmy had chaos energy. I guess because he can fly and he was in the same physical space as near where Cobra was, but on a different atomic vibrational energy level, as in different dimension. So Cobra was technically close enough to him to affect him. I thought the anti-Chaotix robot sent him here on purpose. Mighty says that as long as his dad's here, that's all that matters to him. Predictably, the story ends before we can see the heartwarming reunion. Espio cathartically complains, "We spend months looking for this place, and then Charmy just stumbles into it." Well, I guess that is just the luck of the Chaotix nowadays. But Vector's still a brilliant engineer. But he built a machine to get here, so he still earned it. The story ends with Vector winking at the audience, saying that maybe the Special Zone just can't bear to be without the Chaotix crew, which I hope is intended as an apology for it being destroyed. It doesn't look like Vector had any actual proof of his theory that the Special Zone was just recreated and not destroyed, which it clearly looks like it was last time. I guess it was only destroyed for a couple of seconds, and it was more like the reset button was pushed on a computer than the off button. I expected Zachary to know what he was doing. He's a brilliant scientist. It made no sense that a universe would be either destroyed or rebooted by Shadow simply bringing the Chaos Emeralds to him with magic. Chaos Emeralds are together all the time, and all that happens is a super form. And they're together on Angel Island all the time in the comic itself, and that doesn't destroy the universe. Apparently just the mere act of Shadow attracting the emeralds to each other from far away like he was a magnet for chaos energy rebooted the universe for no reason. Yeah, I still feel like this is a parallel universe, thanks. It's the obvious idea. It's not the same Special Zone we knew anyways, because Crimson Cobra's larger, so either way there's creative potential in showing how things have changed. But it could be explained as a parallel universe and make more sense. And again, Vector hasn't done any experiment to prove this. There's no proof it's the same place. He just made this up. And sure, energy can only be changed, but that's why I assume the Special Zone was changed into white light. Hence what I clearly saw when it was destroyed. This is the definition of a Deus Ex Machina. It's a happy ending, but I'm too confused to enjoy it.
That's why the story should have had at least 2 more panels where we got to see Charmy and Mighty hugging their relatives. I remember in the Sonic Triple Trouble story in Archie, the last time a bunch of Chaos Emeralds, like 2 halves of an emerald and a whole emerald, were being attracted to each other because of Chaos Energy attraction. Like, that's the closest Archie went to what Shadow did to destroy the Special Zone. And it's not like the universe was being threatened with being rebooted there. If anything, an explosion was about to happen. That's destruction, not rebooting. And I know it's Archie, not Fleetway, but still. In the next story, which should hopefully be good if this wants to be considered a good issue, it starts out with some unknown person in a brown cloak walking through a desert. I guess he's an Order of Magic person, considering the cloak. The person enters the building, and then we see it was Rouge, who's holding a suitcase. Someone says, "the serpent," and then Rouge says, "consumes its own tail." Oh, so this was her saying a password, and he asked for it in a smartly subtle way. She's called a thief and told to be patient. I'm guessing that's Infinite? It's been a long time since I've played all Sonic Forces in one day, and I skipped all the cutscenes, so forgive me if I don't remember Infinite's appearance very well. He's not exactly memorable as a one-note villain, and he looked pretty weird. I'm really glad the text box tells me that he's looking at a time stone, because I'd never know what the hell he was looking at and complimenting otherwise. I know what a time stone looks like, and it's not that. It looks like a square jewel. And I bet it looked like it was supposed to in the Sonic CD adaptation as well. So why would it suddenly change appearance? Did the artist forget what it looked like? The Time Stone doesn't have the same powers as the Phantom Ruby. Well, I guess it would be interesting for the Time Stone to have a new power, but they should explain it then. Out of nowhere, Rouge points a gun at him, making a clicking sound with it at first for no reason. Isn't that a bad idea? Wouldn't she just shoot him right away if she wanted the money without the consequences? Instead she wastes time saying she's not a bloodsucker bat. She's done horrible things in this comic, like ruined an irrigation project spilling water into the desert just for money. So don't expect me to buy that someone who took money to commit terrorism is against killing as fast as possible. Also, the description for the story on the website expects us to believe that Rouge isn't villainous at heart. Clearly someone who's thinking more about the game than the actual comic. It's a little late to redeem her at this point. You have an evil Rouge, just go with it. That's never been done before. Infinite powers up with the wrong kind of stone for that, and is told to freeze. I'm guessing he'll freeze her, making the story frustrating and making a would-be hero like her look like a drooling idiot, because she had absolutely no excuse not to just shoot him instantly if she was planning that all along. It's just one finger movement. It would have actually been better writing at that point if she just did nothing. I'm already used to the idea that she's evil in this comic. I'm not used to the idea that she's an idiot. This comic portrayed her as so super competent that she had people running ragged trying to arrest her for always successful acts of evil. Multiple acts in a row. So what kind of character assassination is this? If anything, Fleetway Rouge is the most competent one of them all. He says he can see the past, the future, and everyone. If he could see the future, why wouldn't he give up on whatever evil plan he's got right away because he'd see that he's gonna lose? Why doesn't he just give up and go become a baker or something? Don't have him say he can see the future then. He's talking like he can see the past, future, and present all at the same time, implying that he's supposed to be aware of all time periods at once, and everything, somehow. Which means that he would be aware of the part of the future where he loses. It'd be pretty sad if even Flynn wrote a future-seeing person better. It made sense that Xander didn't give up immediately, because he was actually seeing a future where he was successful, and he was successful, because he wasn't planning on doing something wrong, so he was allowed to succeed. Even Pinky and the Brain writes this better, because there was actually an episode where the Brain has a future-seeing device, and he's actually able to see that even as an old man, he still didn't take over the world successfully. The only reason he got his motivation back was because he realized that the future could be changed. Out of complete nowhere, he sends a telepathic message to Blaze and Silver. Not to brainwash them. He's lampshading that Silver's an idiot and magic is wasted on him. Tell that to Archie, Silver. I don't remember SVC Silver being that stupid. Misinformed about Sonic because of fake history, but not stupid. Honestly, from this point on, I'd expect this to be better written than the plot of Sonic Forces. It would be intriguing to write a brand new plan for him. I'm already impressed because he's using the Time Stones instead, so it's completely new. But obviously it would suck if this led to someone taking over the world again just because Sonic Forces did it, because it'd invalidate the victory Sonic had in issue 100. Even if it was too easy and spur of the moment, and ignore the negative consequences that a huge EMP would actually have. I don't trust anyone to write a more satisfying victory than that, though, not with this franchise. We were lucky we even got that. We see Silver and Blaze talk to each other, saying that they heard it. The last time I saw Blaze, she was returned to being a baby, after being sent into a portal. Now she's back to normal, in Silver's future, apparently with no other purpose to fill the void of not being the Soul Emerald Guardian. Her being from the future sucked for a reason. The story ends with a portal showing up in front of them or something, with Silver saying you can't catch tomorrow, after Blaze says, run all you want. What's going on? Are they going to fight Infinite? Why would there be a portal there for them to go into to fight Infinite? Why would Infinite make sure a bunch of heroes know about him so they can get a head start on trying to stop him? This is stupid. You don't want most of the stories in an issue to get that reaction. Only one of the 3 stories was any good. The first story was complete crap. Shadow doesn't warp Vermin out of his armor right away, which I assumed he would do, and somehow he disappears afterwards, just because he's a clone, when he looks nothing like Sonic anyway, so clearly there's more to his DNA than his. So he shouldn't count as a clone, and I was hoping it had been long enough since that stupid bullshit that nobody writing this would think about it. This ending completely shits all over and invalidates the heartwarming story where Shadow's happy to get a real body and get out of cyberspace because it kills him apparently. Then why was he allowed to get out of cyberspace? Why wasn't he warned about this imminent death immediately? Instead he thought he'd grow old. This was clearly not what that story was building up to, because he was happy. The Chaotix wouldn't know, but Kintobor should, because Sonic would have told him as basic conversation afterwards. Actually, the main problem with the story was how stupidly Shadow and Sonic were fighting. That infuriated me enough to make the whole thing a rant fest. I don't want the story to be canon. I don't want this crap to ever be referenced again. He specifically said he would live on if he became energy, so this better meaning comes back, which the fans would pressure them into doing. They could make a Shadow 3 at that point. But I never want to see him do this stupidly in a fight again. So if he doesn't come back, then maybe it'll be worth it, because I don't want to be aggravated by him this much ever again. The second story had Mighty break out of jail with his super strength. I should have seen that coming. And I should have seen that happen. I guess I assumed the prison would be a lot better built than that. I mean, the Special Zone has all sorts of super-powered villains, like a Plasticine Man, a Fireman. So maybe that's why I thought the prison would be so well built that it wouldn't be as simple as Mighty just punching his way out of it. At least it keeps that fast pacing going to resolve the arc in one issue. I love that IOU line. I guess Mighty intentionally waited until Espio would reunite with them in jail to break out, because he needed to know where to find Crimson's hideout first. And Espio probably found it so easily because he's able to go invisible. So he can just stalk whoever he wants. They go there and Charmy freaks Crimson out and falls on his head, which knocks Crimson out because Charmy was wearing a helmet. I love that was actually taken advantage of in a story for the first time. I also love that the Chaotix weren't put back in jail, and Vector just got allowed to leave the police station with a warning that he has to give them money for that wall. That was so easy. I really wish I was told that the only reason they aren't being gone after again, like I thought, is that they know it's pointless when Mighty can break out of prison. And I guess they assume he'd break Vector out of prison, so why bother? It's confusing, but it's nice to the main characters regardless. I also have to just assume that Charmy was sent through a portal in time as well as sent to another dimension. And that's why he's still alive after being this way the whole time and not being able to do anything to keep himself alive. So Vector finally explains that Charmy was sucked over to the new special zone because Crimson Cobra was using a device that draws in chaos energy. And I guess Charmy had that around him as he was phasing between dimensions. And Vector expects us to believe that the special zone was never destroyed, only changed, because energy can only be changed into another form. The zone did change into another form when it was whiting out, so how did it change back from being a void? Who changed it back? It's like the reset button on it was pushed and it came back differently, still remembering what it used to be like. But it coming back differently is even more confusing than it coming back at all. What a cop-out. It'd be fine to explain that it's just a parallel universe. It looks like one anyways, with Cobra being larger. It could be the mirror zone of the special zone. The Chaotix of this zone being evil could be why our Chaotix were arrested for no reason. We should have seen Mighty and Charmy reunite with their father and mother. That gave us the happy ending we needed and looked forward to, but instead it was nothing but confusion. Obviously it's good that Planet Meridian came back. It's a unique part of Sonic the Comic. But if it's just from a confusing Deus Ex Machina, it's hard to be that grateful. And the final story is barely anything to say about it because it's too vague and barely anything happens. So Rouge was paid to get a time stone for Infinite. She planned on shooting him afterwards so he wouldn't abuse it, but she lost all of her brain cells, so she was too busy drooling like a baby to just shoot him right away. So she got frozen in time. She was a terrorist for a bunch of aliens. I don't buy that she'd be so opposed to killing that she'd stall for as long as possible. And she's in the business of shooting bad guys after she gets money from them for giving them weapons. And that's why she's so casual about doing this right away. Then she wouldn't wait to shoot him. Like, that's the only really impactful part of the arc, and it's so frustrating. And Infinite calls Silver and Blaze after revealing that he can see the future, which would logically mean he sees inevitable defeat and not bother with an evil plan at all. Instead, he speeds up his defeat by telling powerful heroes to go stop him. The story was stupid. A lot more needed to happen in it if you wanted me to take it seriously. I'm sure it's going to lead to an intriguing story arc, but that's why a lot more needed to happen, instead of just Rouge being an idiot.